Music changes us. It's transformative. Music has a powerful role in each of our lives. Welcome to the Praying Twice podcast, where we explore all the ways that music touches our deepest and most profound spiritual longings and helps us to understand more about ourselves. My name is Martin Doman, and I'm so excited to have our guest on the show today. He is a scholar on a very, very high level, a professor, a theologian, a philosopher. He has multiple doctorate degrees, including one from Harvard University. He's just a very well-decorated scholar, and I'm really pleased and honored to call him also my friend. I got to know him down when I was living down in Florida, and he no longer lives there, neither do I, but he's now in Steubenville, Ohio, where he is part of the faculty at Franciscan University. And I've never met anybody that consumes music on such a high level or such a volume as Mikhail Waldstein. I don't think he's a musician, like he doesn't play or do music, but he listens to music and appreciates it on a very, very deep level. He's a very profound thinker, and it's a real treat to have him as a guest on the podcast today. My interview with Dr. Waldstein is in two parts. So the first episode is today, and then the second one will be the second half, and they're about 30 minutes long each. And this first episode is going to culminate with the listening to a piece of music. So I'm really excited to share this interview with you. He is such a wonderful, wonderful person and a very deep thinker, very deeply spiritual person. And I know you're going to enjoy it. So here's the first half of that interview with Dr. Waldstein. Okay, I am super excited today, as I mentioned, to have this guest with us today, Dr. Mikhail Maria Waldstein. Welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you.
I was just telling in my intro our listeners that you are, a very diverse scholar in scripture and theology and philosophy. And I'm really honored just to have you here because of that. But also, I wanted to share a little bit about how I met you, and then maybe you could share the same. I met Dr. Waldstein when I was working at Ave Maria University down in Ave Maria, Florida. And we had never bumped into each other before. And I don't know how we met, but somehow we got together because professors got together and it was a thing. And I immediately was struck by your warmth and kindness to me and my family. And you live right down the street, which is the way things are in Ave Maria. I could walk about 50 yards and be near your doorstep. So we also met through doing the School of Community from Communion and Liberation, which is a movement in the church. It's been around for a long time. And Dr. Waldstein would host meetings at his home for this community. And the School of Community is sort of a get-together and talking about the works of Father Giussani, who is the founder of the movement. Anyway, I just was struck immediately by listening to you speak in those community meetings, just so articulately about our God and, the way that Giussani explained it, but also your own experiences. And I was just so blessed by your warmth and kindness from our family. So that's how we met, and we've been good friends ever since.
Yeah, I can respond to that. What struck me about you was you were intensely alive and in a way that was beautiful, attractive. So I was drawn to you immediately.
So nice. Tell me a little bit about growing up. I didn't mention, of course, that you are Austrian born in Europe, and you come. C.S. Lewis used to say about himself and Tolkien. Now, I'm not trying to make an old joke here, so just run with me here. But he used to say, "I am a dinosaur from an old age. You have to study my bones to understand me fully, and you may find something very good." And I don't think of you as a dinosaur, age-wise, but in terms of coming from a deep, rich culture, the Western culture in Europe, you really inherited a lot of the richness of that culture growing up. So can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and just your first experience of music and the way it touched you?
Yeah, I was born in Salzburg, and the first 3 years of my life, we lived there. My father was a law student in Innsbruck and then got a position in Innsbruck. So we moved to Innsbruck. Innsbruck is a wonderful place with mountains on both sides, going up far, and you can see the city a little.
Wow. Sounds amazing.
Miles below. Our house was on the edge of the city on a hill with the hill and grass going up to the mountains where we played very often. The first very distinct memory I have of music was listening to the Pathetique Sonata of Beethoven, I think when I was about 7, lying on the ground in our living room. We had a rather miserable record player. You placed the vinyl disc on it, but it had a relatively small turntable, so it was not very regular.
Okay.
Sound was not particularly beautiful, but there's something mysterious about music, very different from language. In language, and I've had to study many languages as a biblical scholar, if you read a text and you don't know a word, you can go to a dictionary and it'll explain it to you. And the grammar books give you a clue as to how sentences are constructed and so on. With music, it's expressive, but there's no dictionary that tells you what it means.
Hmm.
So it seems to unfold of itself a fascinating power in the soul, which is a very, very mysterious thing.
Yeah. For a
I
minute,
remember my sisters not
ahead.
liking hearing the Pathetique because they thought it was just cling clang. But I was deeply drawn into it. I should say that my parents very pointedly exposed us to music and made a choice that they would give us classical music and not initiate us into pop music.
Interesting.
The choice they made, partly they were disciples of Dietrich von Hildebrand, friends, close friends of his. He visited us often.
And he's a very well-known philosopher, you'd say, right?
Philosopher who had a fantastically sensitive aesthetic sense.
Okay.
And that was communicated by him to my parents, who were always awake to beauty in all circumstances. If we traveled, immediately, if there's a beautiful view, they would point to it. And so my father sort of guided me. I think he was the one who proposed the Pathetique Sonata to me. He thought I would find it compelling. And the experience was of a kind of slow growth of being drawn into something very deep,
Wow.
sort of unfathomable. I had increasingly the impression this thing is absolutely unfathomable. It's like entering a magic kingdom, a
Wow.
landscape unknown to me before.
So you're laying on the ground, listening to this on this old record player, and you're
Smelling the
experiencing.
carpet. I can still remember the smell of the carpet.
Wow, isn't that interesting that the music caused you to remember the smell and everything? Just, you can put yourself there right now, can't you?
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow, that's great. So what I remember you telling me a story once about this church that had organs on 4 different spots or something. Can you remember that story? Can you tell me that again?
Yeah, that bears on being in Salzburg again. My parents moved to Salzburg when I was 12,
Okay.
and the cathedral in Salzburg has a huge organ in back, and it has 4 organs in the transept where the 2 naves meet.
So like a cross, if a church is in the shape of a cross from looking down from the top, on the
Exactly.
4 corners of the center of that cross, the 4
Exactly. The 4 corners.
joint
And
ends. Yeah.
there are 4 organs, and it was built in a way emulating Venice, because
Okay.
in St. Mark Cathedral, you had many balconies and organs on the balconies that were constructed for polychoral music, answer,
Call and answer.
question,
Okay.
going
Wow.
back and forth between them.
Wow.
Monteverdi is an example of that, and Rosenmüller a little bit later than Monteverdi in Venice, and another example. So that came later.
But I mean, what
But
was that like sitting there listening to that organ from four different spots? It's almost like surround sound. Today they have that, obviously for a while now we've had surround sound, but this idea of that music's all around you. What was that like? I can't even.
yeah, the great work that was composed for the cathedral in Salzburg to make use of all of those features is the Missa Salzburgensis by Bieber, Heinrich Ignaz Franz von Bieber, a Baroque composer, violinist. And I heard it in the cathedral. Then I was already an adult. Um, and it's simply mesmerizing.
Wow.
It's a mass for 153 voices
Wow.
distributed over the cathedral.
I know what that number means, 153. That's a great number.
It's huge. Yeah. The manuscript of that mass was discovered just before it was destroyed. A butcher was using it to wrap meat in. And
I'm sorry. A
was,
butcher was using the sheet music to wrap meat and it almost was destroyed. Really? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. What a
then
story.
it was retrieved. But that came later in my life.
Okay.
And much of the early development happened in Innsbruck. A second station, as it were, along the way, I remember, I was very sick. I had an infection on my jaw.
Okay.
They had to open up
Oh,
the
oh.
skin and flesh
Yeah, I
over
don't
the
want
jaw.
that you're gonna freak me out a little bit. Yeah, let's not go
Okay,
there. But anyway, you had an infection.
I was really very weak, and my mother, it was then, who gave me a small vinyl disc, a 45 speed disc rather than a 33, of Mozart's flute quartets.
Okay.
And I listened to them over and over and over again. I remember lying in bed and listening to them and being amazed by the joy in that music. So
Wow.
being very weak and in pain,
Yeah.
that music in a way lifted me out. The effect was amazing.
It's almost magical, right? I mean, this idea that sound waves traveling, performed at another time in history, being transmitted through a device, just when they hit our ears, the idea that that can lift us out of, feeling miserable. That's amazing,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it really says something about the human person, doesn't it? What
it
what what
does.
kind of a being are we that, I mean, when you play music in front of my dog, he doesn't seem to change at all. His mood doesn't change. He's always the same. He's a wonderful animal. But that's
Yeah,
something that makes us human, right? That we can absorb beauty in different forms. But in this case, for our topic with music, that we can take something into our ears that that can change the way that we even perceive our own reality in that moment, or even our whole life. I mean, it can be life changing, right? I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely life-changing. It seems to be closely related to language. In a way, it itself is a kind of language, not in words, but making use of mathematical relations in nature.
yeah,
All of the relations between tones are mathematically determined, that seem to be built into our nature.
right.
Singing was probably the first way in which music emerged, and then musical instruments, in a way,
Okay.
imitate.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Um, so it is a deep human language. And what struck me about both the Beethoven Pathétique Sonata and then a little bit later about the Mozart flute quartets is the density of meaning. It was like entering into something great,
Yeah.
into a great hall, and not being able to see everything in it right away, it being mysterious. And then as your eyes adjust, you see more and more. It's maybe an analog of the experience of listening again and again
Yeah, it's
and
funny
again.
that you're mentioning that because just a podcast a couple episodes ago, I literally it's the name of the podcast is called On Repeat. The fact that when we listen to a music we love, we listen again and again and again, and each time there's a layer of depth. I think that's what you're talking about. I mean, I understood you perfectly, like this idea of like you're walking into this deep hall, and you don't really see everything, and then all of a sudden your eyes adjust and you're seeing more things and more things. I mean, how many times have you listened to a particular piece? Tell me what's a piece that you've probably listened to the most number of times? If you had to pick one that you listen to the most, like the number of times you've played it in your ears, the
Yeah, I
most.
have on iTunes, or as it's called now, the
Apple Music,
music
yeah.
app in Apple, a counter that tells you how many times you've listened to
Really?
something. And
Okay.
I hadn't used it from early on, but certainly from about 98, maybe
Okay.
99, there's some numbers, and some are over 100,
Wow. So you've listened to certain ones over 100 times.
right?
Now, tell me this. I told everyone in the intro before you were brought onto the show that you have back in Apple Music used to have that it used to have the how much storage you had of music, and you would say you have this many hours of music, or sometimes a day. I think you had something like 28 days or some crazy number of music. What was the number that
Let
does
me
it
see, I
still have
can
that?
tell you, 1 second, 800 gigabytes.
800 gigabytes of music.
But
That's a lot of music. Each
no,
MP3 is maybe like what, like 10 megabytes or 25 megabytes or something. That's an amazing amount. So let's go back to the thing we were talking about, which was um, just the mysterious nature. You are a scholar in the theology of the body, which I mentioned in my intro, that is the teaching of John Paul II about the human person and how God reveals truth through the creation of the human body and how it behaves in it, the language that it has. And I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about that, just as a summary, specifically as it regards to music, because I believe that even though a lot of I've studied, of course, this topic of theology of the body in your class. I've taken 2 classes with you on this, and actually recorded, I think, 2 other classes. So I've listened to your class of theology of the body probably 4 times. So it's been really, really great. And I also told our listeners that you translated the theology of the body into English from the Italian, but also using the Polish as a context, which is just
and wrote a book
amazing,
about it. Wrote a book about it called "The Glory of the Logos in the Flesh."
right?
Um, One amazing thing about the human body is the phenomenon of expression.
Hmm.
When you look at somebody, when you look at a face, and somebody looks at you angrily or with hate, it's like a blow. That is, it's true, we first see color and shape, but in a mysterious kind of alchemy, I don't know exactly understand how it works. The face can communicate what goes on within the person. So when somebody looks at you, you see them looking. You can even see them thinking. You can't tell exactly what the thoughts are, but that they're pensive and absorbed in thought is something you can see in the
Yeah,
face.
it's invisible. You can see something invisible, sort of.
Exactly. You see the invisible. It's expressed. Expressed means pressing out. It's not like a toothpaste where you press a little bit of toothpaste out. So,
Right.
but it becomes present to you. It's not just, you don't just suppose that behind the kind of closed iconostas of the appearance, something else goes on, but it comes to the fore.
Right.
And music seems to be akin to that. Its expressive power is great. That is,
Right.
the tones, when they're arranged in the particular way, should express what exactly. It's often difficult to tell when you can distinguish dark pieces, despairing pieces, and joyful pieces very, very easily.
Yeah.
But what it exactly is that this language tells you is mysterious,
very
not
mysterious.
translatable into words.
Right. Yeah. So you have a piece that you wanted to share with us that demonstrates this, I'm sure. And so maybe you can share your screen and maybe explain a little bit about the classical piece that you're going to share with us and we're going to listen to and then talk about. So I don't know if you want to share your screen and show the text on there.
Yes, I will do that. 1 second.
There we go. So tell us,
And
what are we looking at here?
it's the text of the first movement of Bach's Cantata number 32.
Okay.
Liebster Jesu, mein Verlangen. Sage mir, wo finde ich dich?
So
you have,
a German is your native tongue, right? And then, of course,
right.
Bach was a German writer. So he wrote this text in German that we're going to listen to. It's in German. But
Actually, he had other people.
Translation.
He had other people usually write the text, and he then composed.
Yeah.
This particular text is a jewel. I highlighted the words that rhyme in German.
Okay.
So the yellow Verlangen at the beginning, corresponding to desire, that corresponds to umfangen, to embrace.
Okay.
So they belong together. Desire and embrace, in a way, are opposites. You desire union, you desire embrace. So the rhyme brings them together, but brings them together as opposites.
Okay.
The next one, in, is in the German dich, which in English means you, and rhyming with it and corresponding to it. And the next to last line is mich, or me.
Right.
So you and me as opposites. And right in the middle, you have verlieren and spüren, which kind of rhyme. And they mean lose and feel, which are also opposites. So you have here symmetrically arranged three themes that are laid out in opposites to each other in the text. It's a little masterpiece of poetry, but what Bach then does it with the music is
right. And also the text itself, the content. I'm just going to read that for our listeners. Dearest, this is in English, the translation. Dearest Jesus, my desire, tell me, where can I find you? Shall I so soon lose you and no longer feel you near me? Oh, my treasure, give joy to me. Let yourself with highest delight be embraced. So the words that Dr. Waldstein was pointing out at the beginning and end, dearest Jesus, my desire, there it is, desire, and then embraced at the end. Tell me, where can I find you? Shall I so soon lose you? In other words, is it so soon that I have to lose you? Shall I so soon lose you and no longer feel you near me? Oh, my treasure, give joy to me. Let yourself with highest delight be embraced. Whoever wrote this text obviously has a deep spiritually close relationship with Jesus. That this relationship is very intensely strong. You can tell just by the way it's written. Any comments before we start to play the song?
No.
Give us the title real quick before we begin it.
Liebster Jesu, mein Verlangen, Cantata 32 by Bach.
Okay, so here we go from the beginning. Wow. Wow. That was absolutely beautiful. I never really understood how deep some of this music can be, and meaning classical music. It's what a treat to have Dr. Waldstein on the show and this first episode to listen to that song and to sort of process that. I know it'll be in my head for the rest of the day. So, all right, well, that was the end of this first episode. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you like the podcast and you enjoy it, you want to share it with some people, please do that. You can also subscribe on the YouTube page or on whatever platform you use. But please send us a like or a subscription, or just share it with your friends, post it on your Facebook page, whatever you need to do to share this with other people if you really enjoy it. I really would appreciate that. And until next time, God bless.